Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So this is deck report week number 6. I went to locals again and I played the Fire King pure Fire King deck for the second time. This is the first actual weekend of Rage of the Abyss being legal, which means other players at my locals were going to be as prepared as I was with post Rage of the Abyss strategies, and there were a couple of them. So my record wasn't that great. I ended up X3, and I don't think the issue that I had was the matchups. I think the decks that I faced against were fairly well positioned. I think my deck didn't have like a disadvantageous hold against those certain strategies. I faced 2 Yubel decks, 1 Tempai and 1 Madolche, and I only ended up beating one of the Yubel players. So what contributed to most of my losses was I bricked 7 times. For me it was kind of surreal how much I bricked. I literally kept opening non-engine like a lot of games, and there were games where I just traded non-engine with my opponent until I drew playable cards. But there were other instances where my opponent just drew even more playable cards than I did, because they have a way more stable engine than I had at the time. So that is one issue that I do have with Fire King at the moment. I'll go straight to the deck list and then we can talk about it a little bit more. I did make a few changes from last time. So 3 Ponics, 3 Okanics, 3 Kirins, 2 Garunics, 1 Big Garunix, other Garunix, Arvata, Rangbali, Barong. I still playing Wolfbark, triple Ash Blossom, and Gizmet Kaku is no longer in my main deck, and the Droll and Logbirds are also not in my main deck. I kind of wanted to experiment with a few other non-engine cards, and the card I chose for this weekend was Dogoron, the Mad Flame Kaiju. So I guess I'll explain this. I wanted a non-engine card that was a fire monster, because it would have meant another target for the Fire King Island. Again, I bricked on non-engine, so I just wanted to have a card that had at least a bit of a purpose in the Fire King strategy. In the off chance I did open the island and the sanctuaries, but at the same time I wanted a card that was good across the board. I thought about a plethora of other things. One other card that I thought about was Rescue Ace Impulse. I did not want to play other hand traps because, one, most good hand traps that you should be playing right now conflict with Dominus Impulse, and I just did not want to be in an awkward position. That's one of the reasons I moved Droll to the side deck to begin with. The other thing that I thought about is that this deck is good when under simplified game states, but I can play under simplified game states if I just deal with certain cards across the board. With the Azamina engine now being legal for a couple of strategies, this card just deals with the Rhea Silvera on the spot. Against Fiendsmith variants, this also deals with Desiree immediately, which did come up. This card just blankets out any interruption in the game, and you really don't just have to think about it. unless it's like, cards that just prevented summon. But on those instances, you already are good with against those cards with your current engine. I did not dislike the Kaiju, but again, like, I can't say that the Kaiju was actually helpful because I did brick. There was a game. I opened two Kaijus, and I was at a point where I was forced to use both Kaijus, and then the turn right after I drew Fire King Sanctuary, which was kind of unfortunate because it's so bad when you're put in a position where you have to use your non-engine like as early as possible to avoid getting like beaten by your opponent. But it is an engine piece for whatever piece you're missing for your deck, and like this card doesn't have real one card starters. So like the only real one is technically Ponix, which is kind of unfortunate. But yeah, that was the reasoning behind the Kaiju. Again, I thought about other cards. Rescue Ace Impulse with Fire Attacker was the other card that I thought about, which is another NJ I kind of wanted to try out, but I just did not have the card on me, so I just went for the Kaiju. 3 talents, called by Prosperity, Skyburn. It's so so something funny that I'm going to tell you guys. I opened Prosperity more than I opened all my other Fire King cards. It was so wild how many times I opened the Prosperity, and I was so in a really bad position. I was always I was doing Prosperity for 6 because I was forced into doing that, which was. And it's not that it's awkward because again, like the pure variant of Fire King doesn't really have to worry about the extra deck that much, but it's just very unfortunate that I just had to be in that position. And yeah, it's just so weird how something like this would happen, like a limited card being seen more in my deck than the rest of my cards. But I digress. 3 Imperm, 3 Dominus Impulse, 1 Skill Drain. Nothing I have to say about these cards. I getting really cool things with Impulse, like this past weekend. There was a Kashtira Burst that was already on the board, and I drew the Impulse, and my opponent activated the Burst effect to bring back like a Kashtira Fenrir, and I immediately negated and popped it with the Impulse because I had a Imperm that I used earlier in the duel to negate the Fenrir. Another really cool thing that Dominus Impulse did for me was it was against the Yubel. Yeah, it was against Yubel. My opponent tried to so he went Samsara Lotus and he tributed it. I tried to negate with Arvata. He did the other Yubel, and then when they tried to use the Yubel effect to like the one that was popped, I also impulsed it. Another really cool thing that I did with Impulse was there was a Nightmare Throne already on the board, and my opponent tried to use the Nightmare Throne effect to just spawn a second Yubel, and I also popped it with the Dominus Impulse. So yeah, that was really good on that regard. Like Impulse is the reason I built this deck in the first place, and if I wanted to talk about Impulse performance itself, the card just overperformed. Extra deck: Bagruska, Dweller, Infection, Heartbringer, Orchest, Eternity, Anima, Phoenix, Hita, Dark, IP, SP, Promethean, Phoenix, Zelantis, Underworld Goddess. So you see a few new additions here. You see the Phoenix. I've managed to get the Promethean Princess package as well. Outside of the context of that of the times I was working, I think this engine is fine. I did summon. I did get to this engine against a Tempai player opponent, and it does give you layers of interruption from other avenues, which is something really good. One card I want to play in this deck that I don't own yet, and I know the card's not worth anything. Well, two of them. One is Doolittle Chimera, and the other one is the Amblo Whale. So those are two cards that I really would want to play in this extra deck in the future. I just don't own the cards, and I asked around at locals, I asked around like everywhere, and people just did not have them. So I'll probably order them online. So with the cards were not severely needed, but now that I do own this package, I feel like it's just natural for me to just try to play them. Side deck. 3 draw. Duster, Lightning, Dark Ruler, Evenly, Gozen, TC Boo, and Anti-Spell. Almost the same side deck. I'm playing now 3 draws in the side now. So basically against the matchups where I actually do need draw, I just put in the draw in. Like I just don't like draw in the main deck, but I know that draw is really good against certain matchups. Draw is actually really good this format. I will make a recap video involving the YCS Niagara, and I will be talking about draw because I think draw actually was really impactful that weekend, this past weekend. But yeah, this is it. That's the deck report. There's not much to discuss. Unfortunately, like it is what it is. Like breaking on non-engine is something that happens to a lot of decks. I just didn't think it would happen to me that many times. I don't know if it was just like unlucky or I really just need to fix the numbers when it comes to the strategy. And I know that Azamina and the Azamina engine with the Sinful Spoils is like the way a lot of people are going about this, especially with the Snake Eye cards. And I will talk about that when I talk about Niagara. But my main issue with that engine is that playing that engine in this deck, even though it raises the ceiling, it makes you very susceptible to a lot of popular cards that a lot of people are playing. It makes you weaker into Fualas. It makes you weaker into like the Dominance Impulse itself. It makes you weaker into Ghost Ogre. And I just don't want to be a victim of all those cards. And I felt like the pure version was good for that. But if the deck is going to be breaking that many times, something needs to change. So maybe I'll figure out something. Maybe an engine that really just keeps the consistency of the deck in check, but doesn't lose to those many aforementioned cards that I mentioned. But until then, I hope you found this deck report interesting. Keep practicing and keep dueling.